Hey, Janeen, welcome to the Profit and Grit Show. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Tyler. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for our conversation today. I love your podcast. I love that it feels like real business, contractor conversations, not just the highlight reels, with the
Thanks.
lessons, the strategies, the growth, and the scars in some
Love
cases.
it. I love it. Yeah, the scars. I think we're going to cover a couple of those scars today, sharing some things with the audience and hoping people can learn from things in terms of your own growth. Where I'd love to start is just learning a little bit about you. Could you tell me a little bit professionally what you do? And then I'd love to know a personal tidbit too.
Sure. So I am president and co-owner of Just in Time Heating, Air Conditioning, and Plumbing Services in Sandwich, Illinois. So we are about an hour and 15 minutes southwest of Chicago, but very rural. So our town has about 9,000 people in it. So pretty rural.
Oh, that's small.
Yeah, Justin and I both grew up, right around here. We love it here, love our community, very active in the community and stuff like that. So love it.
That's awesome. And then how about a little personal tidbit about yourself?
Sure. Well, before coming into this industry, because believe it or not, I didn't grow up thinking like someday I want to be in heating, air conditioning, and plumbing. But I actually didn't grow up thinking this either, but I was an analyst for 3M for 16 years before joining Justin on this entrepreneurial journey. So, but I was excited that he invited me along, and here we are 16 years later. I guess a personal tidbit that I love to talk about, anybody that knows me, is that outside of Just in Time, my favorite role is being Mima, is what my grandkids call me. And I am very blessed that most Wednesdays I am able to spend the day with them making memories. So I have four little grandkids.
That is awesome. That's very cool. And then just because I'm always so impressed by accolades and when your peers acknowledge you, during my research, a couple things came up. One, you were voted 2025 Woman of the Year. That was at the Service Nation Service World Expo. I think that was in November, if I remember correctly. And your peers actually voted you in on that. That's pretty cool. Like, how meaningful is that to you when you get like that peer validation?
Yeah, that's really hard to put into words. Obviously, I mean, the award was in my name and I'm grateful for that, but I didn't get there alone. No one's ever successful by themselves. My husband definitely, invited me along on this journey, saw something in me that I definitely didn't see in myself at the time. Have had some amazing mentors from this industry. And I just really hope that I can use that as a platform to help other people in the industry see their potential. I think maybe if I had a superpower, it would be being relational, I hope. And so hopefully people can see, wow, if she can do things like that, so can I.
That's cool. Yeah. And I mean, you have a whole bunch of them, but another one that really caught my eye is top 30 influential women in industry. That was the HVACR magazine that honored you in that way. That's pretty cool. I mean, you've got several others. You're very active in Service Nation. I think it's a weekly culture pillar that you're part of. So really you're active. And why I bring this up, one is I think it's super cool and you deserve to be acknowledged for all these things that people are acknowledging you for, but also like, why? Like, are you doing this because you feel like this helps you run your business better? Why is this community? It seems like it always gives so much. I'm just curious, like, I'd love to just learn more about you and like what drives you in getting this recognition and to keep doing things that are making an impact in the industry.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it just says a lot about our team, about Justin's vision in starting our company and about the industry. And, the trades gave me, the way I look at it is it gave me a platform to serve. It gave me purpose. It gave me confidence that I didn't have. It's just been so many opportunities. I just want to get the word out. I want to help other people see what they can do. And I just want to keep growing and learning so that I can, other people can feel this way also. And that I can just serve and help have a bigger impact and do more.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's very cool. Well, where I want to start with this is since you brought it up, you talked about, you were at 3M I think you said 16 years, supply chain analyst. How do you and your husband, how do you bridge that gap to going, hey, I'm going to leave this big safe company, at least probably at the time it felt that way, and I'm going to go start, an HVAC business. Like, how do you get there? And does some of your scars interplay, like share in this journey where those scars popped up, and was it early on, and were there regrets about doing this? I'd just be curious. Take me through that.
Yeah, it was completely out of character for us to do something like this. When we started Just in Time, Justin and I were together, we were living together and everything. I have two daughters that are biologically mine, but definitely ours. And they were young when we started the business. And so technically we were not married yet. So I was technically kind of a single mom and had the scars of that, I guess. I really, really liked my stable corporate job at that time.
Sure.
But I guess the best way to say it is I really, truly believed in Justin. And when he talked about starting this business, he did not say things like, hey, I want to get rich and why am I doing this for somebody else when I could be doing it on myself? I mean, when he talked about this dream, he said things like, I want to give clients the value and the service that they deserve. I want to give back to our community. I want to wear this uniform with pride, have it be associated with like, hey, that's my go-to company. They do all this stuff in the community. They sponsor my son's T-ball team, I think one of the best compliment or a really cool moment that I remember probably 2 or 3 years in is all of our daughter's friends were like, can I get a t-shirt? Can I get a t-shirt? And then like we'd go to high school sporting events and everybody's wearing them. And it was just really cool because it was like, I felt like that was a full circle moment for him. Sure. Because that's what it means,
Sure. Were there any early on, like when you talk about scars or kind of like, oh my gosh, what did we do? Were there any moments like that when you guys first started out?
Yeah. And all transparency, I didn't day one quit my job. Okay. We started the business January 1st of 2010. I left my job in October. Okay. So for a while there, it was kind of just helping here and there in the evenings. There wasn't enough phone calls or jobs to really do much. So I would come home to a clean house. And if the kids forgot something at home, he could run it to school. He had a lot of free time. So actually, Justin's dad owned heating and air conditioning company and also a plumbing company at the time. Okay. And when Justin left that company to start, when we started Just in Time, his dad came to us several months later and said, hey, do you just want to buy the HVAC portion of that? So that did help us grow. We have some scars from that transaction, even though it's family sometimes. We just didn't really educate ourselves much on acquisitions back then. So, yeah. But like I said, it's part of our story. It's part of our journey and helped us grow. There was a couple other little tuck-ins those first couple of years, just with people, kind of like a one-person truck that was retiring kind of a thing. But then I think, just our community involvement and things like that. Justin is pretty smart with marketing, that kind of thing. So the word kind of got out. But
what do you think, like, if you had to say in that first, say, 3 years, mm-hmm. Were there any big obstacles, like where you're trying to overcome things, or was it pretty smooth sailing from the beginning, or does anything stand out that just didn't go as planned?
Yeah. So we were working out of our house to start out with at the kitchen table. Wow. So that presents its own challenges, right? Because technically, you're not really supposed to be doing that. So we got a little bit bigger and there were some delivery trucks coming. And so then we rented our first space. But again, that was pretty small and it was just Justin and I. So, I answered the phones and he ran the calls. So if I was in the hospital, I was answering the phone still. Wow. If I was at a softball game or a school event, I was still answering the phones because back then it was full on 24/7. So that was really hard. Financial side of it was very difficult, very straining on us. And with me, being the sole provider and insurance and everything for the kids at the time, there were some struggles there too. We were all in, I guess. Wow. And again, during those first 3 years, you're just doing everything, right? You're just trying to fix everything. You're reacting to things as it come. You don't really know what you're doing. And then thank goodness, one of our suppliers offered a training and they paid 50% of it. and we paid 50% of it. So it made it affordable. Went to this training, and we were one of 3 contractors that took advantage of this, wow, which was incredible, which was crazy. We did have to drive 2 hours to go to the training, and it was 5 times a year for 2 days. And we met John and Vicki LaPlante in that training. And I'm sure you've heard their name.
Of course, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So this is when they had their own consulting company, and one of the first times that they retired, for those of you that know them. They still have retired. And then in 2016, they announced their retirement of their consulting company, and they were going full time with Service Nation. And we were like, all right, well, we're joining Service Nation. So had we not met them and really started understanding, I remember the first time they put up a P&L, and we were like, what? Ours doesn't look like that. So, just really understanding the numbers, really understanding why it's important to break down departments, getting processes in place, that kind of thing. Otherwise, you're just reacting every day.
Yeah, that's good stuff. One thing, I am going to circle back on the process thing, because I think that's one thing that really makes you guys unique. But before I do, I want to talk about the whole husband and wife type dynamic. In some ways, I definitely can see the pros of that. You guys can leverage off of each other. You probably have certain strengths and weaknesses. But then there's a part of me that's like, man, like that's tough, because you're going home to your spouse. Yeah. A lot of times you're in the office with your spouse. How do you guys make that work? Like and is there ever friction when it comes to like decision making, or do you guys know your own lanes? What does that look like from a practical standpoint?
So is there ever friction? Yes. I don't think anybody would be telling the truth if they didn't. Our core values, our vision, our mission, that's all the same. And that's the filter that we run every decision through. So the big things we work out, it's more like, again, talk to you a little bit about DISC, but that's helped us to understand each other better and communicate better, because we go about things a little bit differently sometimes, but the end result and the end goal is all the same. But like you said, staying in our lanes is huge. And sometimes we just have to remind each other of that. Yeah. I would say Justin's better at it than I am about shutting off work, because he kind of grew up in a family business environment. And I have a harder time just shutting it off. So I'm the one that will tend to talk about it during dinner or bring up something in passing because I didn't see him all day at the shop. So I caught you. I'm going to talk about this now. And he'll be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not in the mindset right now. Ultimately, all the decisions that we're making and, we're building the life together. If I had a bad day or he had a bad day, we typically know why. We don't have to explain it.
Yeah. Do you find whether it be Service Nation or a business coach, does that play any role in terms of like a buffer of when maybe, because sometimes you have like the visionary mind and then you have more the systems mind, and those can kind of clash. Does that play any role into sometimes getting you guys on the same page or knowing which direction to go on something?
Yeah. And I think, the dynamic of husband-wife business partnership too is, we love each other. You don't want to see somebody struggling, so you want to fix it. Well, that's not always the answer, and that's not always what they're looking for. But the coaches having that third-party strategic partner, they care about the success of the business, but they're not emotionally in it. They're kind of like higher level. So they're able to ask questions and get us to think maybe a little bit at a higher level, so much personally. But yeah, I definitely think that networking with and becoming really good friends with other contractors, especially ones that are husband and wife also, is helpful. Not to share, but how do you work through that? And just that level of understanding, because, a lot of our best friends wouldn't know what it's like to run a business and work with your spouse every day. And they just kind of get that. Those have become some of our closest friends now, other contractors. But yeah, having that third party coach and just that unemotional support has been very helpful.
Right. You had mentioned your husband is very good at marketing. Does he tend to be the idea generator guy where like he's always got a new idea? And I'm making some inference here, so feel free to correct me, but I'm seeing you as supply chain, you tend to be more of the systems, more of the strategic thinking. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say he's more operational and the field team. And I'm more the people. And he's very strategic also, but I would say, yeah, people and strategy for me, and operations and vision.
Okay. Our mutual, we both know Alyssa Rogers in the show. She was explaining like her husband has a lot of ideas, and the way she kind of worked around it, because it can easily take you off track with different ideas. She just like notes it down. And once he started realizing like, my ideas aren't going to waste, they're getting put on a priority list. It like really helped that friction of staying away from shiny new object type ideas and staying focused on what's at hand with always those ideas ideas can come back when the timing's right. Do you guys have some like system or methodology where you kind of buffer those ideas and directions you're going?
Yeah, we do have an owners meeting pretty regularly. We kind of fell off track on that and we're getting back on. So it's good we're talking about that. But then we also have our leadership team meeting weekly. I think that helps to just keep things on track. And I'm sorry, Tyler,
No, that's good. I was just kind of talking. I get,
little.
whenever I ask a question, I usually ask like 50 questions in one sentence. So it's on me. But just in terms of like the dynamics of, your personalities and kind of making them both like you have a system. Like Alyssa kind of had a way to get around her husband's, I don't want to say quirkiness because I don't think it's bad, but he's an idea generator and it's easy to get off track with that type of mindset. Do you guys have like frameworks? It sounds like your owners meeting might be one thing.
Yeah, that's one thing. Our communication, understanding how he wants to be communicated with. I used to send an email, and the way I send an email is it's like 3 paragraphs long. It has all the information in it, and he would not respond. And I would be really frustrated because I felt disregarded, right? Well, we had a business coach that said, Justin, why didn't you respond to Janeen's email? She's emailed you 3 times. And he's like, I opened it. It was like 3 paragraphs long. I don't have time to read that. So now I can either continue to hit my head against a wall and he won't read it, or I can do a couple short bullet points. What do you think? And then I get a response. So that's been a tool that has helped. And then also, I think one of our biggest struggles, full transparency, is, and I hear this a lot at conferences when I'm talking to husband and wife contractors, I'm the CFO, so I handle the financials. So it's easy for me to say, hey, this labor percentage is out of line, or we need to raise prices, or we need to be more efficient, or why is this guy driving an hour on idle? You know what I mean? What's going on here? I think especially coming from like your wife or your husband, can feel more of like a personal attack. Like, don't you think I can handle this or something like that? So that was kind of becoming a little bit of an issue. And I've heard that so many times where the wife will say like, yeah, I'm the dream crusher. Like you said, he's the visionary. It's like, let's buy this or let's open another location. And we're like, no, hold on. Right. We are actually we're partnering with like a third party to kind of go through, and really all she does is go through our financials monthly and does a 3-month comparison. But it's kind of like using AI. Sometimes it doesn't feel like a personal attack. It just is reporting the data.
Right. No, yeah, I've seen that. I definitely have seen that in my own client base where one will be the finance mind and the other will be the non-finance mind. And maybe the finance, because they're married, it just doesn't come off right. And having that intermediary, even though they're saying maybe the exact same thing as the other party, it doesn't come off the same way. It doesn't sting, I guess I'd say.
Yeah. And when you're looking at the financials day in and day out, especially with my personality type, I'm learning because that drains me. It's been my role for 16 years, but I'm like, maybe I don't need to be in all the day to day of it, because then I obsess about it. I'm like, okay, well, I get into the nitty gritty of things where it's like, really, all I need to do is say, is labor percentage in line of where we need it to be? If it is, great, let it go. If it's not, then I can maybe dig in.
Yep. On that note, since you're CFO, I'd love to know what is it? Do you have a general metric for labor percentage that you're looking at? Are there a couple metrics that stand out to you that you feel are like the be all in terms of, hey, you got to pay attention to these?
Yes, definitely. Well, we do everything by department.
Okay.
So we have, on the HVAC side, we have install, we have maintenance, and we have service. And on the plumbing side, we have service and install.
Okay.
Because we don't really do drain cleaning and stuff. So.
And then what do you tend to look at most? Are you looking at GP by service line? Are you looking at gross profit by service line? Are you looking at the labor percentage by service line? Like what are the variables that go, hey, things are working, or hey, maybe we got a problem?
Yeah. Well, I tend to focus at high level. I tend to focus on profit. Justin tends to focus on revenue.
Okay.
But to answer your question, definitely, the gross margin by department, and then also focusing on overhead for the company and by department.
Okay. And then is there a general diagnostic you have from a labor percentage that you're looking at? Is there a standard, or does it vary? What's that look like for you?
Yeah, overall for the whole company, when I run the whole company numbers, I'm looking for it to be about 20%.
That's including admin or just direct labor?
That is just direct labor.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I've heard, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So I've heard
Each
anywhere.
department's so different.
Yeah, so I've heard anywhere from 17. So the general rule of thumb is like 17 to 20. It's interesting. I'll have periodically clients come to me and it'll be like 26, 28%, and their GP will be really low. And it's usually a combination issues, but their labor is really high, which it's interesting you look at that because a lot of times I think we don't look at numbers like that. And then we wonder like why our bottom line isn't what we want it to be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like profit is just like any other bill. We have to pay that bill. It shouldn't just be whatever's left over.
Yeah, that's good.
But it does depend, if you're in growth mode. And I think, like Joey and Alyssa, like you mentioned, I mean, they're in high growth mode. So that is going to change things. When we know our first quarter is not going to be super profitable. We're in Illinois and that's just kind of how it is. And we're ramping up for the heat of the season. So, we don't want to cut back on marketing just because the revenue isn't there. So, it's all percentages. And so if the revenue isn't there, then the percentages are going to be a little bit higher. But again, as you know, the financials tell a story. And if as long as you're making conscious decisions, intentional decisions, so that you can hit the ground running when you can, depending on the season, I think it's okay. But you just need to be aware of it. It can't just happen.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Okay, I want to talk about next thing. That's just great stuff we just talked about. I want to talk about this. You guys, obviously, DISC is part of your culture, and you actually put the profiles. I think at one point it was like 24 profiles. I'm sure it's changed, but you put the profiles on the wall, I think, in the conference room, so everybody can see. Everybody, coworkers, colleagues, managers, everybody can see each other's DISC profiles. Can you talk about that? Because to me, that's pretty unique, and it definitely sets your culture in terms of, I'm sure when someone's getting interviewed at your company and they see that, they immediately know like, hey, we're open here. Like we're going to know how each other operates. Talk about that a little bit in terms of your decision making on doing that and what kind of impact it had to the business.
Yeah. I mean, it gives so much insight into the people. And we all know, hiring somebody is quite an investment. And if it doesn't work out, it's very costly. Mm-hmm. So, we do quarterly hiring events, which we've kind of gotten those down now with the help of some coaches, but they know what we invite them in to a hiring event every time we post jobs too. And so we go through like the career paths, we go through the hiring. We start out with our vision, our mission, and our core values, because again, we don't want to waste our time, but we don't want to waste their time either. We're a company that has a lot of meetings. We invest in our team. We do a lot of trainings and things like that. So we want them to know that up front, make sure it's a good fit for them. Then part of that hiring process is taking the DISC profile right before their second interview. And then we use that information to, like for instance, I guess an easy one would be if somebody's like a super high economic as far as values and attributes, that's going to make me ask them some questions, because that could be good. Nothing's good or bad. It's just right. Insight. Right. So again, those questions would be different depending on their DISC profile, just to get to know that person a little bit better. And then, once they're hired, I'll sit down with them and go through like their DISC debrief, which that has been incredibly surprising to me. I mean, I guess I didn't really know what to expect from that, but people even emotional going through that. It really is almost like they feel heard and understood for the first time. And sometimes they've never even heard of DISC, and because before I'm going to post it up there, I need their buy-in, you know what I mean? And I haven't had it yet where I'll say like, read this page about how you prefer to be communicated with, and they're like, oh yeah, that's me. We have everyone's picture with their DISC profile, and then we keep it simple. You can get a 74-page report, but no one's going to look at that. So, and then we say, for this person, this is how they prefer to be communicated with. Do these things, don't do these things. If I'm going to send that person with you and you don't really know them, and I'm expecting you to train them, I'm also going to share some insight with you on this is how, this person learns best. This is the ideal environment for them.
Very cool. And I'm assuming you've never gotten pushback on this. Like, has anybody ever felt comfortable with having their DISC profile on the wall?
Yeah, no one's ever had a problem with that. They love it, really. Always been positive, nothing negative.
So because something you said earlier too, you said, hey, whenever we go through our decision making, we think about our vision, we think about our, what our business goals are and what we're all about. This DISC also plays into that, that, right? Like
Oh
just
yeah.
in terms of your overall, how your decision making happens and how you're interacting with each other. Do you have any data points since you've done this in terms of how it's changed turnover or whether it's changed productivity? Any type of data points since you've done it?
Yeah, I will say retention
Really?
has been incredible. I mean, just most recently, we hired 4 new field team people, some plumbing apprentices and HVAC techs. We hired them at the beginning of October and they're all still here.
Wow, that's
And,
really
and
good.
and thriving. It has changed a little bit without the disc profile. I think my husband and our lead techs would have hired someone different
Sure.
in some cases, or not considered somebody where I'm like, hey, here's some things that I'm seeing. Obviously, I don't know the person either, but you might want to consider this person for this role. But again, it's not cookie cutter. I don't like labeling people by any means. Yes, there's some, certain personality types that can tend to be better, like a high C that it could be better in an accounting role or something
Right.
like that. But it's not necessarily that way. So
That's what I was going to ask you. I'm still going to ask, even
yeah.
though you kind of answered it. Is like when you're thinking of a technician, are there certain, dominant or whatever that I don't remember
Yeah.
all the things where you're going, hey, this is going to be a better profile. You have 2 applicants than maybe someone that doesn't fall in a certain criteria. Are you finding any patterns like that when you look at, you say those people from October, they're being successful. Do they have similar patterns in their disc or are they all completely different?
As far as the disc portion, which is the personality styles, like really that gives you insight to if the higher that letter or that personality type, the more often you're going to tend to see those behaviors or the more prevalent they'll be. So I would say like for a technician, we have a lot of S's and C's. So they care about people. And I will say that, we didn't always use this in our hiring process. And so I will point this out when I'm doing training with our team on disc. I'll say, if you look at that wall, we have a lot of people with a high S. Now that means they care so much about people. They want stability. They might be a little bit slow with change, those kinds of things. They don't like confrontation. They want to feel safe and stable. So I was like, knowing that, Justin and I need to make sure we're creating an environment that is safe for you to bring ideas, for you to challenge. If there's a process isn't working, they may tend to just keep doing it because we told them to, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it just gives so much insight in how you talk to people and communicate too. If it's somebody's more task oriented, I'll ask them, what do you think about this? And if they're more people oriented, you tend to ask more like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
Or, different motivators, not everybody's driven by $1 an hour more.
Yeah. So if someone was interested, let's say there's someone out in the audience listening and saying, hey, I really need that in my business. Like, where do you start? Like, what would your suggestions be around someone that has no type of DIS type profiling to maybe starting the groundwork of doing it?
So the first place I would start is with yourself.
Okay.
Taking the assessment yourself and then really digging in and going through it. Because, self-awareness is the key. But once you read yours and understand it, you automatically start seeing things in other people and you start understanding it more because you relate it to yourself. You're like, wow, how did it know that about me? And so you get real curious about it. So that's where I would say you start. I know that there's, you can Google disc profiles and find some free ones. Being a Service Nation member, they started a couple years ago. Chris Michelle brought in the Intermetrics disc, and that as a Service Nation member is a free tool. So I tried to tell everybody about that. I'm like, you should be using that. Have your entire team take the disc profile and just start looking through it. And again, I love it. It's helped our team, our organization, my marriage. My relationship with my kids, everything. So I have gone further and gotten, certified in training and consulting with DISC, but you don't have to do that. You know what I mean? Reading through it and understanding will give you a lot of insight.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, I went, Jobber, they make a CRM software, invited me onto their podcast and they flew me to Las Vegas and I met with some of the other people that were guests there. And I'll never forget, there was a guy named Tom Reber. He does some podcasts and he's in the construction industry. He's a coach. And the way he was talking about the disc profile, he's like, as soon as I know someone's disc profile, I literally can connect with anyone. I literally can figure out like what makes them tick and how to interact with them that we're going to have a productive conversation. And he was like the first person, I'm not even doing justice the way he explained it, but it was like the first person that I never really looked at it that way. Like I always looked at it as like a scoring system for a personality. And because that's just my brain. I'm a numbers guy. And I think I try to articulate it that way. But he was like, no, man. He's like, it's the way people want to be communicated. When they fill that out, they're basically saying, and please feel free to correct me if you see it differently, but he was like, this is the way they want to be communicated. If you understand that and you communicate with them the way they see themselves as wanting to be communicated with, you're exponentially increasing your chances to having a deep connection with them. And it just just stopped me in my tracks in terms of the value of it. How do you feel about that when you hear it?
Oh yeah. I even present on DISC out in the community and different organizations and stuff because, everything we do is with people. And the better you can connect with people, the further you're going to go. Right. I mean, right. And so I do training once a month with our team in our all company meeting for about 20 minutes. And I just keep building on it each time. They're starting to see, and then I can put it into examples in our industry. We have our value statements. We have different scripts that we can give, but it's not, if you're at a customer's home and they're like, get to the point, don't just keep going just because the script says to go, or if you come to my house, don't just come in and say, where's your thermostat? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm out of here. I won't like you. And if I don't like you, then I don't want you in my house. Right. But if you say, hey, is that you have horses? And I rode a horse once, then I'm like, oh, I love you. Come on in, so.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff. Okay, good. One last thing I want to cover before we wrap up is just this concept of role playing. I know you guys are a big fan of this and as part of your training. I think you might still do it weekly or frequently. Talk with me. How did you introduce that role playing? When did that come into part of your business? How do you think it impacts your business? Where did you get the structure for it? I just kind of want to dig into that. So maybe just share, starting out with talk to me how you handle your role playing right now, and do you still do it, and how often?
Yes, we do. And we do it weekly to some degree. I don't know if they still do it on the field end, but in the office, we use Service Titan. So all of our calls are recorded. So we can kind of play those through, and then we can talk through some different situations, even using that. But with the field team, first of all, we don't call it role play. We call it skill practice.
Okay.
And, it's just the language, but it just makes me feel better.
Sounds better.
Yeah. But we literally have somebody knock on the conference room door. They have to answer the door. Another key thing that Justin was doing for a while is videoing while they're doing the skill practice, because they won't notice that you're walking to the door with your arms crossed, or that you say, I'm sorry 12 times, or those kinds of things. So when you're watching it back, you notice a lot more. And if you can get through a scenario in front of your peers, you can do it anywhere.
Right. Yeah, it's intimidating. It's intimidating.
Yeah. But they all have to do it. We're getting ready to go to the International Maxwell Conference next week. Another fellow contractor friend, we have to do a 3-minute speech as part of the certification. And she was getting really nervous about it. And I'm like, you have to remember, everybody at your table also has to give a speech. So they're going to be really nice to you because they want you to be really nice to them. Sometimes they really challenge each other too, sometimes, but they take it really seriously.
Yeah.
Because I think they've seen the value of how it helps them in real life situations.
Have you guys seen anything, whether it be reviews or some type of data where, man, this is definitely paying benefits?
Yeah. Definitely. Especially, I think, with technicians that are a lot more technical and like to explain, and tell the customer everything that they're going to do and how the system works and that kind of thing. It helps them understand that they can be a little bit more relational and focus more on features and benefits. Yes, there's going to be certain personality types, which we try to train them on, that may want to read the manual and have you explain what that wire does. But most people just want you to get them back to normal and fix it.
Yeah. I've had a few situations like that where you get that technician that wants to tell you and God bless them. I mean, I get it. They were passionate about what they do, but it's like in the back of your mind, you're like, dude, just fix this. I just want I want cool air again. Yeah.
You're like, because you're here, I think you're qualified. You don't have to prove it. Just fix it.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. So I think in terms of the only other last thing I kind of want to talk with you about, just from a business standpoint, I know you guys have gone, I believe it's from 3 million to 6 million. What's kind of your aspirations in the business? Are you the next $100 million business? Is it multi-locations? Is it you're in a good spot where you're at? What do you kind of have a vision in terms of where you want to go as a business?
So I feel like, and I'm sure you hear this a lot. I heard, Alyssa talking about it too, but there's different levels that are harder, right? What got you here won't get you there. And we're at about 5.5 million now in revenue. And We're seeing that. We do work hard to develop leaders. You know what I mean? But we're still working on that. You can't just always promote your best technician into a leadership role or your best dispatcher into a leadership role, right? It's a whole different skill set. And so, in 2026, we are focusing on efficiency, accountability, and intentional growth. But we're doing that to set us up for, really honing in on our processes. We've implemented Trainual, a lot of things like that are making it very more streamlined and efficient in getting our processes, and they're more accessible. Before that, like last year, we'd be like, where's that process? Oh, it's saved in this folder. It wasn't good. Most of them were fine, but some of them weren't. So Trainual will be a big thing. And just really kind of overviewing, what's all in our overhead. Do we really need these things and that kind of thing? But I think that's what's going to set us up for growth, I guess, more revenue growth and profit growth in the future. So we want to run a company that private equity would love to buy. And then then it's a good company, right? I mean,
right.
And we can choose if we want to sell or not sell. I mean, I don't know that we really want to sell to private equity. That's not really our goal, but you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. You don't. And it's also when you get the offer, sometimes that can change your mind pretty quickly, depending on how many zeros are attached to it. You mentioned Trainual. So a lot of times Scribe, Whale, and Trainual are the ones that all get mentioned. These are like software packages for documenting processes. How do you like Trainual? I haven't actually used it. Is that a pretty good way to document your processes?
It's very easy to categorize them. It keeps them standardized. If a process or SOP is updated, it will automatically notify anyone that process is relevant to. And you can either have them acknowledge it or sign off on it, depending on how big a deal it is, but at least acknowledge so that they know something has been updated. And again, it's very easy to find even on HR issues, so they don't have to ask myself or my assistant. They can just go into Trainual and say, oh yeah, how much PTO do I have? Or what is the policy for this?
Very cool. Yeah. Just in closing here, I'm always fascinated by the levels of a company, because there really is, I guess I'd call it a maturation process from like 3 million, or let's say 1 million. You have, maybe a little bit of a chuck in the truck getting out of that a little bit, but you're still the primary person. You get into that 3 million, it changes a little bit. 5 million, you have a new kind of ceiling. And I would argue 5 million's maybe the hardest, because you're bigger, but you don't have necessarily the resources to have this full-on management team, but you're trying to build infrastructure. And so you're kind of caught in this weird, you're kind of like a teenager that is stuck in this phase of becoming adult. Yeah, awkward. And then I think once you blow through that, maybe 7+, I do feel, I don't want to say it gets easier. I think you have more resources to do things at that point.
Yep. Yeah. And that's why we're focusing so much on the efficiency and developing that mid-management role. If we can get I really feel like we need like a service manager. And right now, Justin is refining that. He just really has on his heart that he wants it to be set up perfectly to pass that on. So he's working on some things there so that the handoff and that team member expectation for that role is very clear. And I agree with that. I mean, clarity, you have to know what winning looks like in that position. When you get into a mid-management role, you're now responsible for your team's results, not just your own individual results, like all of those things.
Yeah, I think that's really wise, because a lot of times what I'll see is people get kind of an idea about adding someone, they'll do it. They don't really have a plan. They don't really have a vision. And all they've done is just added more overhead, but don't really have any way to say, I'm going to build infrastructure around this, or I'm going to make it pay for itself. And it just ends up kind of, hurting your bottom line, and oftentimes doesn't work.
And right now we do have a great team. I mean, they really care. They make great decisions. It doesn't have to all go through us. But again, to get much bigger, we are going to have more mid-management level. So right now it gives us the opportunity to, like, we have lead positions, and we can start giving a little bit more responsibility here and the responsibility there. So they start learning and growing and developing. And then we're also able to see kind of what their capacity and what their, skill set is in the area of leadership. So
very cool. Very cool. Well, this has been a great conversation. It sounds like, and then is it next week or 2 weeks that you're actually doing this 3-minute speech?
Yes.
Next week?
Yeah, next week.
Oh, how exciting. Well, I'm wishing you the best of luck. I hope it goes smoothly. I would be, even though I know everybody else have to do it, I still would be as nervous as can be. So hopefully it sounds like this is one of we all have superpowers. It sounds like maybe one of your superpowers.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. This has been awesome.
Yeah, it has been awesome. Just your website. I'll put your LinkedIn in the show notes. Your business website is justintimeheroes.com. Justintimeheroes.com. I know you're a fan of Service Nation, so I imagine if anyone wanted to learn more about that, would you be open to them reaching out to you just to kind of understand it more?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm open to anything. We're completely transparent. We've invited contractors from all over the country, or if they're right down the road, there's enough work for all of us. So if there's anything that we can help with, we're happy to do that.
So cool. Hey, thanks, Janeen, for taking your time to spend with me today, and really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you.
Welcome to Profit and Grit. It's profit and grit, not luck and a wish. From the wrench to the spreadsheet, we're stacking our chips. Slow season hits, man, we tighten the ship.